They say the law is blind, but in the Miller household, the law has 10 fingers, a manicured grip, and an uncanny ability to find the one spot on your ribs that makes you regret every life choice you have ever made. We often think of discipline as a cold, hard gavel striking would, but sometimes, justice is warm, wiggling, and leaves you breathless on the living room sofa. This is not a story about anger. It is a story about consequences. It is a story about Sarah, a 22-year-old woman who thought she was too old to be punished, and the very loud, very hilarious lesson she learned one lazy Saturday afternoon. The Saturday afternoon sun hung heavy in the sky, casting long, languid shadows across the hardwood floors of the Miller residence. It was the kind of silence that usually signaled peace, but for Sarah, it signaled an agonizing boredom. At 22 years old, Sarah considered herself a connoisseur of excitement. She was a creature of chaos, a self-proclaimed queen of mischief who found the quietude of the suburbs to be personally offensive. The house was devoid of sound. No television hummed. No radio played. The air conditioner hummed a low, monotonous drone that only served to amplify the stillness. Sarah wandered from the kitchen to the hallway, her socks sliding against the polished wood. She checked her phone for the 15th time in 10 minutes. Nothing. The digital world was asleep, and the physical world was offering her absolutely nothing in the way of entertainment. She drifted toward the living room, seeking any form of stimulation. There, sitting in the center of the Persian rug, was her brother, Tommy. Now, Tommy was 24. He was a serious young man, currently in the final agonizing weeks of his master's degree in architecture. To the untrained eye, he looked like a grown man playing with toys. To Tommy, he was constructing a scale model of a brutalist high-rise that would determine his entire professional future. He sat cross-legged, his posture rigid with concentration, surrounded by thousands of interlocking plastic bricks and custom-cut model pieces. Sarah leaned against the doorframe, crossing her arms. She watched him. He didn't move. He placed a single gray block with the precision of a neurosurgeon. He adjusted it by a millimeter. He stepped back, squinted, and nodded to himself. Riveting, Sarah whispered to herself. She walked into the room, the mischievous spark in her gut igniting into a flame. "Oh, what is this masterpiece?" she asked, her voice dripping with feigned curiosity. Tommy didn't look up. "It's the thesis project, Sarah. The neo-urban skyscraper. Don't touch it. The structural integrity is barely holding on the north facade." Sarah smirked. "The Leaning Tower of Tommy, you mean?" She circled the model like a shark circling a swimmer. It was impressive, undeniably. It stood nearly 3 feet tall, a complex lattice of gray and black. But to Sarah, it wasn't art, it was a target. It was the only interesting thing happening in a 10-mile radius. She bent down, her face inches from the delicate spire. "It looks wobbly." "It is not wobbly," Tommy snapped, finally looking up. His glasses slipped down his nose. "It is structurally sound. Just back away. You have a magnetic field of clumsiness." "I am grace personified," Sarah countered. She extended one index finger. "I'm just going to test the wind resistance." "Sarah, don't!" Tommy warned, his voice dropping an octave. "Boop," Sarah said. She poked the side of the tower. Just a tap, a microscopic application of force. The tower swayed. It groaned. Tommy gasped, his hands hovering around it like a protective force field, terrified to touch it lest he make it worse. The tower teetered to the left, corrected itself, teetered to the right, and then, miraculously, settled back into stillness. Tommy let out a breath that sounded like a deflating tire. He glared at her. "Do not touch it. It is almost done. I just need the keystone piece for the antenna array." That was the worst thing he could have said. Telling Sarah don't was like telling gravity stop. It was an invitation. It was a challenge. She crouched beside him, adopting a mask of pure innocence. Okay. Sorry. I just wanted to be involved in your genius." Tommy, foolishly, believed her. He turned back to his sorting tray, hunting for the final, crucial black connector piece that would cap the spire. While his back was turned, Sarah's hand moved with the speed of a viper. She spotted the piece, a unique, 4-pronged connector sitting alone on the carpet. She snatched it. In one fluid motion, the piece vanished into the pocket of her denim shorts. She stood up, whistling a tune that sounded suspiciously like nothing at all. Tommy turned back, a frown creasing his forehead. He scanned the carpet. He lifted the sorting tray. He checked under his own legs. "Where is it?" he muttered. "Where is what?" Sarah asked, examining her fingernails. "The connector. The keystone. It was right here." Panic began to edge into his voice. This model was due on Monday. Sarah shrugged, her face a picture of angelic confusion. Maybe it grew legs and ran away. Maybe it decided it didn't want to be part of a brutalist nightmare. Tommy looked at her. He really looked at her. He saw the twitch at the corner of her mouth. He saw the glint in her eyes. The frustration that had been building in him for weeks of sleepless nights and architectural stress began to boil over. "Sarah," he said, his voice tight, "give it back." "I don't have it," she lied, sticking her tongue out. It was a childish gesture for a 22-year-old, but regression is a common side effect of sibling proximity. She reached out and ruffled his hair, destroying his perfectly combed style. That was the catalyst. The stress, the exhaustion, the heat, and the annoyance combined. Tommy didn't cry. He was 24 after all, but he let out a shout of pure, unadulterated frustration. "MOM!" It was a roar. It was a summon. It was the nuclear option. Sarah froze. "Dude, you're 24. You can't call Mom." "Watch me," Tommy said, crossing his arms. "MOM. Sarah is sabotaging my thesis." The sound of footsteps on the stairs was not heavy, but it was purposeful. It was the rhythmic, terrifying cadence of authority. Their mother appeared in the doorway. She was a woman of 50, elegant, composed, and possessing a gaze that could peel paint off a wall. She was wiping her hands on a dish towel, her eyes scanning the room like a detective arriving at a homicide scene. "What?" she asked, her voice dangerously calm, "is the meaning of this noise? I am trying to enjoy my Saturday peace." Tommy stood up, pointing an accusing finger at Sarah. "She is sabotaging me. She almost knocked over the tower, and now she stole the keystone piece. I can't finish without it." Sarah, sitting on the arm of the couch, immediately threw her hands up. "Objection. Hearsay. I didn't ruin anything. I was conducting a stress test. It's essential for modern engineering. And I don't know what piece he's talking about." The mother looked at the tower. She looked at Tommy's flushed face. She looked at Sarah's overly innocent expression. She had raised these two. She knew their tells. She knew that when Sarah looked like a choir girl, she was guilty of at least 3 felonies. "Sarah," Mom said. The tone was soft, but it carried the weight of a sledgehammer. "You are 22 years old. Why are you tormenting your brother when he is trying to work?" Sarah scoffed, rolling her eyes. "I wasn't tormenting him. I was alleviating his stress through playful interaction. He's so sensitive. He needs to lighten up." "I need my peace," Tommy said through gritted teeth. "Give it to me." Mom walked further into the room. She stopped in front of Sarah. "Sarah, do you have the piece?" "I plead the fifth," Sarah said, grinning. Mom sighed. It was a long, weary sigh. She shook her head slowly. "You know, Sarah, if you want to play games, I have a game we can play." Sarah perked up. She thought she saw an out. She thought she saw a distraction. "Oh, what game? Is it cards? Is it Monopoly?" A small smile crept across Mom's face. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the kind of smile a cat gives a mouse right before the pounce. It was a smile that promised retribution. "It's called the Tickle Lesson," Mom said softly. Sarah blinked. The air in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "The what now?" "The Tickle Lesson," Mom repeated, taking a step closer. "It's a very old game. It involves a lot of laughter, a lot of regret, and a very important lesson about respecting other people's property." Sarah's survival instincts kicked in. She leaned back, her laughter now tinged with genuine panic. Wait a minute. Mom, I'm an adult." "You can't. That's not." "Oh, you're an adult?" Mom asked, arching an eyebrow. "Then why are you acting like a toddler who stole a toy?" "I was just joking." Sarah backed up until her legs hit the cushions of the sofa. "Can we talk about this? I think we can resolve this through diplomatic channels." Mom didn't answer. She simply lunged. In a flash of movement that belied her age, Mom had Sarah pinned. Sarah fell back onto the plush sofa, letting out a shriek that was half laugh, half terror. Mom! No. Wait. Sarah kicked her legs, but Mom was a veteran of 25 years of parenting. She knew the holds. She knew the leverage. She sat firmly on Sarah's legs, effectively immobilizing the lower half of the defendant. The court finds the defendant guilty of theft and general annoyance, Mom announced, her voice calm amidst the chaos. The sentence is immediate and severe. Tommy, seeing the tables turn so dramatically, sat back down. A wide, vindictive grin spread across his face. Get her, Mom. Maximum security. Don't show mercy. Traitor! Sarah yelled at her brother, but the word dissolved into a squeal as Mom's hands found their way to Sarah's waist. The moment those fingers made contact, Sarah's composure shattered. She was, unfortunately for her, extremely ticklish. It was a family curse, a genetic flaw that Mom knew exactly how to exploit. No, no, no. Mom. Aw. Ha 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 ha. Mom's fingers were relentless. They danced along the waistline, digging into the soft spots just above the hip bone. It wasn't a gentle tickle. It was a targeted, tactical assault. Is this funny, Sarah? Mom asked pleasantly, her fingers working their way up the ribcage. Is this as funny as stealing your brother's project? Yes. No. Ha ha ha. Stop. MOM. Sarah writhed, her face turning a bright shade of crimson. She tried to clamp her arms down to protect her ribs, but Mom was too strong, prying her elbows open to expose the vulnerable underarms. Tommy, Mom called out, not breaking her rhythm. What was the crime again? She stole the keystone, Tommy reported, watching the spectacle with the satisfaction of a Roman emperor. Ah, theft, Mom said, moving her hands to the dreaded underarm area. She scratched lightly, teasingly, before diving in with full force. Sarah howled. Not there. Not there. Ha ha ha. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't return the Lego piece, Mom said. Or the architectural model piece. Whatever it is. It's a polymer connector. Tommy corrected. Right, Mom said. She shifted her weight, pinning Sarah's wrists above her head with one hand. This left Sarah's entire torso exposed, a canvas for the artist to work. And Mom was Picasso. She walked her fingers down the center of Sarah's stomach, swirling around the navel, creating a sensation that was agonizingly electric. Sarah gasped, her laughter becoming breathless, high-pitched hiccups. Please, I'll give it back. I'll give it back, Sarah pleaded, tears of mirth streaming down her cheeks. I don't think you've learned the lesson yet, Mom mused. You see, Sarah, when you disrupt the peace of this house, you disrupt me. And when you disrupt me, I have to channel my energy somewhere. She moved to the ribs again. The spider. She did the spider. It was a move Sarah hadn't felt since she was 12. The fingers drummed rapidly against the individual rib bones, creating a vibration of ticklish sensation that sent shockwaves through Sarah's nervous system. Nah, ha ha ha. Okay. Okay. I submit. I yield. Sarah shrieked. Her hair was a chaotic mess, plastered to her forehead. Her shirt was twisted. She was completely at the mercy of the matriarch. Tommy clapped slowly. Excellent form, Mom. Truly inspired work. I try, Mom said modestly. She paused for a brief second, letting Sarah take a single, desperate gulp of air. Are we done? Sarah gasped, her chest heaving. Did I pay my debt to society? Mom looked at Tommy. What do you think, Thomas? Is she rehabilitated? Tommy tapped his chin, pretending to think deeply. I don't know. She still looks a little defiant. Maybe check the neck? Just to be sure. Sarah's eyes went wide. Tommy, I will destroy you. I will, ha ha ha. She didn't finish the threat because Mom had accepted the suggestion. Her fingers flew to Sarah's neck, right under the jawline, the most sensitive spot on her entire body. This was the crescendo, the finale. Sarah lost the ability to form words. She just squealed, shaking her head back and forth, trying to escape the sensation. It was pure, unadulterated sensory overload. You won't touch his stuff again. Mom punctuated each word with a squeeze of the neck muscles. Never. Ha ha ha. Never again. I swear. After what felt like an hour, but was likely only 3 minutes of intense interrogation, Mom finally pulled back. She stood up, smoothing down her blouse, looking as if she had just finished arranging flowers rather than wrestling a 22-year-old. Sarah lay on the couch, a puddle of exhausted giggles. She was gasping for air, clutching her sides. Her face was flushed red, and she felt like she had just run a marathon. "Water," Sarah croaked. "I need water." Mom crossed her arms, looking down at her defeated daughter with a victorious smile. "Do you understand why your brother was upset?" Sarah groaned, wiping her eyes. Yes, I understand. You don't mess with the architect. And you definitely don't mess with the judge. And, Mom prompted. Sarah reached into her pocket. Her hand trembled slightly from the aftershocks of the laughter. She pulled out the small, black, 4-pronged connector. "Here," she said, holding it out to Tommy. "The hostage is released unharmed." Tommy walked over and took the piece. He inspected it for damage. Finding none, he smirked. "Pleasure doing business with you." "And," Mom said, arching that eyebrow again. Sarah sighed deeply. She looked at her brother. "And I'm sorry for teasing you. And for poking the tower. It is actually quite impressive." Tommy nodded. "Apology accepted. But if you touch it again, I'm suggesting the feet next time." Sarah recoiled, pulling her knees to her chest. "You wouldn't dare." "Try me," Tommy said, turning back to his masterpiece. He slotted the piece onto the top of the spire. It clicked into place perfectly. The tower was complete. Mom laughed, a warm, genuine sound. "See, harmony is restored." "And Sarah?" "Yeah," Sarah asked, still wary, watching Mom's hands. "Next time you're bored," Mom said, walking back toward the kitchen, "read a book. Because my fingers are always ready, and the Tickle Tribunal is always in session." Sarah lay back on the cushions, staring at the ceiling. Her heart was still racing, and her ribs still tingled with phantom sensations. She let out a long breath, and then, despite herself, she started to chuckle. It was humiliating. It was exhausting. But she had to admit the boredom was definitely gone. Ending. And so, order was restored in the Miller household. The skyscraper stood tall, the thief was reformed, and the judge returned to her chambers, the kitchen. But what about you? Do you think the punishment fit the crime? Is the Tickle Lesson a valid form of adult sibling mediation, or was Mom too harsh on the mischievous Sarah? Let us know in the comments below, and tell us, who is the tickle monster in your family?